The Woodland Cultural Centre in Brantford has been hosting Orange Shirt Day programs and workshops throughout September to educate the community about residential schools and the devastating lasting impacts the schools have had on many Indigenous people. Joining us now is the Centre's Executive Director, Janis Monture. Janis, thank you so much for being with us on this important day.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about some of these programs that were being offered at the Centre leading up to today, Orange Shirt Day?
Yeah, so we've been hosting a number of programs the last 3 weeks, really wanting to spread the awareness and education around the residential school history in Canada, and in particular about the Mohawk Institute. So we have run some programs for primary grades, particularly kindergarten, where we look at the importance of apples and Orange Shirt Day, and also looking at the Thanksgiving address, which is our way of bringing people together in a good way before a gathering and after a gathering. And really, it is tough to talk about residential school history with younger grades, but this was sort of our way to sort of introduce sort of some concepts around, why apples were important to children here, because they weren't allowed to actually eat the apples that were grown in the orchards on the grounds here, and to sort of bring that back to children to understand a bit more, as well as truth and reconciliation workshops and virtual tours of the residential school.
And Janis, what would people be seeing on these tours of the residential school?
Yeah, so we have, because we know you're going to be in a construction phase for the next 2 years, we brought in a local film production company to film the school. So you go into the dormitory, the cafeteria, the dining hall, the laundry rooms, and you actually follow a cultural interpreter through the space, and she talks about the history of this residential school, and it's interwoven with interviews from 5 survivors who attended here.
Wow, and you talked about having children there. Is that a workshop that would be offered to children or, to public in general? Who can see this?
Yeah, so the residential school virtual tour we actually recommend for grade 6 and up, just because of the topic. But it is open to the general public, and we host public screenings the 3rd Wednesday of every month. So anyone can sign up, you just have to buy a ticket from our website.
What's some of the feedback that you hear after these workshops or programs?
I think a lot of people are shocked by what is told in the video and on the tour, and I think for them to actually see the space, because we are closed, it's hard to just look at it from outside. And when I'm actually in the visitation room here in the school, and so I think when you see the space, it brings a whole different sort of lens to just hearing the stories. You actually are seeing, the spaces in which the children were, taken from their families and brought here. It was like a prison in many cases.
And will there still be workshops available after today that the public or schools can contact the Centre about and hear or listen to?
Absolutely. We offer this, all year long, because we want to encourage people to not just acknowledge and remember on September 30th. We want them to learn about this every day of the year. And so you can call our education department at any time and book for a group tour for students as well as businesses and organizations, and they can do the Truth and Reconciliation workshop as well as the virtual tour.
And Janis, why is it so important for people to take the time to learn about residential schools?
I think because so many people have told us over the last few years that they had no idea that this happened in this country, and they want to know why this was allowed to not be talked about. And so we really hope people take the time today to educate themselves and acknowledge the children who came to these schools and who were taken to these schools, but also those who didn't make it home.
Right.
And so I think that's really important for people to take time today and reflect.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Janis Monture from the Woodland Cultural Centre. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.